last hours, more shockers. 600 pages of bombshell documents, photos, video, cell phone records, text messages, and stunning police interview tapes have just been released. Tonight, we are showing you the last known video of little Caylee before she vanishes, and a highly disturbing image is discovered on Casey Anthony's laptop. Also, grandmother Cindy's stunning police interview caught on videotape. You will see it here tonight. Just a few of the many bombshells emerging tonight, giving us an in-depth look into Casey Anthony's lifestyle and her mindset around the time little Caylee goes missing. It's business as usual for Mom Casey, partying and showing very little emotion after her toddler disappears. All the while, she is complaining and griping that being a mom is so exhausting. A big question, why were there multiple searches for missing kids' websites on the Anthony family's computer using Casey's login months before little Caylee disappears? But tonight, the biggest question of all remains, where, oh where, is little Caylee?
George drove her white car, and he may have hit something and killed it because the car was starting to stink.
She said it was a squirrel.
And she started telling these stories from the 25th on. Why? I just want to plant the seed, okay? You don't have to answer me. Why would you do that? Why would you try and pass off the smell? Because we all know that there was a smell in the car. I'm not here to dispute what the smell was, okay? We all know there was a very bad smell in the car. Why would she start to say to her friends and text messages, we have text messages, why would she want to say, hey, I think my dad hit something with the car, and then later on let's say, yeah, it looks like my dad hit something with the car and the car stinks.
I have no idea. I have no idea. She didn't call me back all day, and I was a little bit worried and realized she wasn't home. I thought I had a little sick feeling that something wasn't right. So she finally called me back later in the evening, probably after 5:30, because I was already leaving work. And she was apologizing. She says, Mom, I know I should have called you.
This day?
Yeah, that day.
A little after 5:30?
Sometime after 5:30, I'm sure, because it was on my way home from work.
Know what she said? What happened?
She told me that they had gotten to, her and Zanny, Raquel and Zanny were about 8 cars ahead of her and Juliet and the girls. Casey had her car, Zanny had their car. So Zanny and Raquel were ahead, and somehow there was an accident, and Casey and Juliet witnessed the accident.
Tisha, what is the very latest?
Well, just as you said, Jane, hundreds of pages of new documents released today. One of the highlights, the biggest things, were the computer forensics, which indicate, of course, no indication or reference to Zenaida Gonzalez, either in photos, IM chats, nothing. Also on there, as you stated before, there were searches under Casey Anthony's login name for missing children way back in March. Now, this is long before Caylee went missing. Also, Cindy Anthony gives an interview to police, which was in August 1st. In that interview, she says that Caylee would say that she was going to crash over at Zanny's house, also saying that she thought that Caylee was with friends of Casey's, specifically Amy Huzanga or Jesse Grunn. She also kind of implicated Jesse Grunn, saying that she thought that he might be the person responsible, but detectives backed her up and said, well, we know for a fact Caylee is not with Jesse. Also on that, there was a noose. There was a picture with a baby looking up at a teddy bear with a noose. And this is an anti-death penalty drawing or poster. It originated in the UK, but it was an image that was saved onto that home computer. And it said, why do people kill people who kill people to show that killing people is bad? Also, Jane, in a conversation, an IM chat with Anthony Rusiano, and this is a police officer who was let go from his job because he lied about having a relationship with Casey Anthony. In this conversation, Casey refers to Caylee as a little snothead. And that's the latest.
And isn't that lovely for a mother to refer to her own daughter as a little snothead? Sometimes just a couple of words tell the whole story. Where to begin? So many bombshells. Let's start with a former detective with the Santa Ana Police. Donald Schweitzer analyzed this one for us. Months before little Caylee disappears, somebody is on the Anthony family computer on Casey Anthony's login searching for missing children's websites. Why on earth would they possibly want to do that?
There's only one explanation in this case, and that's premeditation. This woman was thinking about what she'd be telling authorities in the end when she did what she was planning on doing. That's the only reasonable explanation for having that information on the computer.
Tonight, we are seeing this crucial interview between the grandmother of missing Caylee and police, an interview conducted on August 1st. We have it on videotape.
There could have been 1 or 2 nights that they said they stayed at Zanny's, because it seemed like starting in May and June, it was more frequent that they crashed at Zanny's, but not more than 1 or 2 days at a time until after June's, 16th. Then it was a story every day. But up until that, it was no more than 1 or 2 days ever strung together.
She wouldn't call you and say that the baby's at Zanny's staying tonight, but I'm going to Ricardo's.
No, what she would say is, I'm going to crash it. I'm going to, Mom, I have to work late. I'm just going to leave Caylee at Zanny's because I have to get up in the morning, and I'm going to stay at Zanny's. And that way I can go on to work. So she was going to crash at Zanny's.
Let's go to Nikki Pierce, reporter, WDBO Radio. All this talk about crashing at Zanny's. Now, according to Cindy's conversation with the cops, she's saying that in the days leading up to little Caylee's disappearance, Casey and Caylee stayed away from the home, the family home, the parental home, more and more often, and were crashing at Zanny's. But, of course, detectives believe Zanny, the so-called babysitter, does not exist. So where was she staying if she wasn't crashing at Zanny's?
Well, that's one of the big questions of this case, although rumor has it that she was staying with Ricardo Morales, which was her boyfriend at the time, and then later on she started staying with Tony Lazaro, who was her boyfriend after Ricardo. It's a little muddled and a little unclear in that area, but police do believe that Zenaida does not exist.
And on top of all of that, we have this hot sexual affair with a sheriff's deputy. And let me go back to Natisha Lance on this one, because I want you to clarify this comment about a little snothead. Apparently there were text messages going back and forth, and Casey and this deputy, who was later fired, not because he did anything involved in this case, but because he didn't tell his bosses that he had had a relationship with Casey, they're texting back and forth because they want to get together and have a little action.
That's right. They hadn't seen each other, it appears, for 3 weeks. So he's trying to make plans to get together with Casey, and Casey is giving excuses, saying that she's playing phone tag with not only her mom, but also with Zenaida, saying that her mom has a neck injury because she was doing yard work. And then she says, as far as Zanny is concerned, that she's stuck in traffic and that she can't get over there. He has a time frame that he's trying to work out. And before all that happened, she said, when he's trying to get together with her, she says, "Oh, do you want me to bring the little snothead?" And he says, "Well, I'm saying come over when there's an adult around." And then she goes into all these excuses after one another, and it doesn't seem as if they got together that night.
And what's fascinating is that she also says in one of those texts, "I need to start looking out for numero uno more often." In other words, looking out for herself. I think it's time to bring in the shrink, Dr. Leslie Austin, psychotherapist. You've been listening to all of this, a mother describing her kid as a little snothead, possibly the same mother who left little Caylee's treasured baby doll in the car seat wherever Caylee ended up. She was not with her treasured little doll that, of course, if anybody who's ever been a kid knows, it's hurtful to rip a little doll from the child's hands. What do you make of all of these developments coming in tonight?
Well, it's very disturbing that this is a woman who apparently lied all the time, and her mother knew it, her family knew it, it was a way of life, and nobody followed up on who is this actual babysitter? Can I meet her? Can I see where you're staying? Can I see? It's very, very disturbing, and I think that it's pointing to some really, really major sociopathic patterns and tendencies here.
And Leonard Padilla, the phone lines are lighting up. Let me ask you first. In all of these hundreds and hundreds of text messages, in all of the emails, in all of the phone calls, in every single piece of evidence, there is one giant glaring omission. Nothing about Zenaida Gonzalez, the so-called babysitter, emanating from Casey or to Casey.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And the young lady that we had with Casey for 9 days, today myself and my associate Rob Dick, who she works for, she was actually in my office, and we sat there, and me and Rob put the scenario forward about, okay, she runs out of gas on the night of the 26th. She's by a dumpster. The next day she's talking about squirrels. She calls Tony, says, come pick me up. The 28th, she calls Jesse, says, come pick me up. On the 29th and the 30th, finally, the car gets towed off. I said, now look, I know that you've had conversations, and she's told us how attached she became to Casey. Stop us if we're wrong about any of this scenario, especially her putting the child in a dumpster. She started to cry, but never said no. And that was just today, this afternoon.
I have like 7 pages of stuff that I asked him. You know how Lee is doing it? I did the same thing to Jesse because he was my first person I thought of that had a motive that could intimidate Casey enough to keep her mouth shut and that would threaten us because he's that type of person.